Yeah, but Jane, if they worded it like they worded it in Alton,
I know.
you don't know how to vote, most people.
You know what, I have to tell you something, and I'll share this with you. You weren't there Thursday, right, at the meeting here? It was very interesting. You know, I wasn't, this gentleman is from Alton, and we've been through quite a thing with workforce housing. And at the end of the evening, I was finally allowed about 2-3 minutes to speak, and as I was leaving, a couple of people on the planning board or in that area yelled out, yeah, well, Alton voted for its workforce housing this time, and, you know, now you have it, you know, so, and, you know, making the relativism argument that somehow because Alton the second time around voted, right, that the argument that I was trying to make in 2 or 3 minutes was somehow diminished, right? But make no mistake about it. The reason that happened was because, and I take some responsibility for it as a rep, we didn't stay on it like we stayed on it that first round. We thought that we beat it back. When we beat back those first 3 amendments, we thought that we won. But you know what? It's the kind of thing where you just can't stop. You can't assume that because that happened a year ago, that this vote in March was going to happen. And had I known that, had I been through this enough to understand that that possibility could happen, I would have screamed and yelled and held the same kind of things that we did that first year. So when I came here and I listened to what was happening in your meeting, I mean, some, you know, she's not from here, why should she speak? Okay, that's true. But you know what? I didn't want to see Sanbornton. I mean, you guys have one of the most beautiful rural communities in New Hampshire. Truly, I used to work at Tilton School, and I worked there for 2 years. I lived right on that little road down the street there. It goes by the school. And I used to, when I was, you know, not having a great day, I used to drive around Sanbornton to just look at the beautiful, old New England community. And when I started to see what was in there, I was horrified. Do not let them take your community. Don't give it up. Don't give it up. Just say no.
James, what actually, you told me how it got voted, and I asked him earlier tonight, you guys were so against it, according to everything I read in the paper, then how did it get voted in?
They changed the wording. They went from conservation subdivision, and they threatened us that if we didn't put something in, that the state was going to put something in.
Right. They were, but
That was their exact words.
and we didn't fight it back.
Now, whose word is going to do it? Whose word?
Our plan.
State
can.
Yes.
I think our town is trying to change according to our maps.
No.
No, I think it's going from forest conservation to forest agriculture. And where's the conservation now? They're trying to pass that, I think.
I'll make a quick comment. When you mentioned with town planners, we have 2 here. Will and... 3, that's right. Well, Dick is the one that got up and said, hey, Alton got it, you should too. Those were his exact words.
But well, that really was a disingenuous argument, because the facts were still the facts, and you know what, but you were right, we let up, and we stopped educating, and it slipped through. So that was a lesson to me, you know.
The other thing I wanted to comment on was that at the meeting, the lawyer, town council, got up and mentioned somebody, I don't know who brought it up, mentioned the word Agenda 21. And he said, well, he says, Bush signed that into law.
Clinton.
But no, he said Bush signed
Yes, he did,
it into law.
he did.
I went to him after, because I couldn't get a question answered.
Yes.
I asked to ask a question, they decided we'd had enough.
Yeah.
We didn't get a chance to ask her.
That information's on one of your sheets, so you have
I went up
verified
to him and
information.
asked him about that. I said, and you realize that Clinton's Executive Order 12582 was signed in 93, which would make all of this mandated through the federal government's programs.
Yes.
I said, why didn't you mention that? He says, I didn't know.
Well, maybe he did, who knows, but The fact is it's here.
Exactly.
It's here, that's for sure.
But my point was that they're not being totally true to you. The same thing happened at the Lake Region Planning Commission meeting that I went, and Rosemary was there. And Mr. Frost got up, and somebody else brought up this Westchester thing. And they said, well, how did that come out? He said, oh, it's all settled, it's all settled and done.
No.
You just see, it's not true. Again, another big person telling a lie. So this is what I'm getting at,
It's
watch out for
misinformation,
this.
absolutely, yes.
Exactly.
Just this.
Well, you're looking at somebody who has already voted no once on the workforce housing amendment in our amendments. But I do have to take exception with some of the things. Our map was done long before we started working with the grant. The map has nothing to do with workforce housing, and that wasn't how it was planned. And the people who sit on the board, we all had a say in what it went, didn't we?
Why would it be taken out of conservation? Isn't
It's just
conservation
a
a very
name, we
important
didn't
thing?
take it out of
Whose
conservation.
opinion?
Well, it's not
That's
called
changed.
conservation anymore. It's called forest agriculture or something instead of forest
And
conservation.
It borders, for example, I
Words
right on
can
the
kill
edge
you.
of that.
Words can kill people.
I own land that is, the beginning part of it is fields and agricultural, then it goes up further into forest. And so it really is forest agricultural, because when the field stops, our land still keeps going, and it's both.
So when it's called conservation, aren't the
And
taxes
it's one
different?
thing if people don't like the wording and don't like it, but the map was not designed specifically for workforce housing.
Well, why was it changed anyway? What
You know
was
what?
the need to change it?
I'd like to ask you, you know what, and I just want to ask you, do you want Susan to go through the amendments, or have you had enough?
You can't never have enough knowledge.
Well, I don't want to assume anything.
I have a couple of questions before we get.
Okay.
I guess when you read the workforce housing statute 674, code 58 through 61, when you get into section 59, and it's talking about the municipality that adopts land use ordinances and regulations shall allow workforce housing to be located in a majority, but not necessarily all, of the land area that is zoned to permit residential uses within the municipality or town. Now, it says such a town shall have the discretion to determine what land areas are appropriate to meet this obligation. And then it says this obligation may be satisfied by the adoption of inclusionary zoning, if one wanted to do that. But then the next sentence says, this paragraph shall not be construed to require a town to allow for the development of multifamily housing in the majority of the land zoned to permit residential uses. What does that sentence mean? The last one.
That's pretty much what you were
Exactly right.
talking about.
And that's what I've been saying.
Paragraph 1.
And I also have a, in the same,
Months. Sorry, go ahead.
does that mean that the multifamily housing does not have to be in a majority
Correct.
of your town zoned for residential uses?
That is correct.
And if you are going to even look at your single-family dwellings, you don't look at them in proportion to the whole town. I would think you wouldn't include your forest conservation because you don't generally build there.
That's right.
You
So-
can zone your land.
Let me finish. So Sanbornton is about 50% with forest conservation. So I would think before you even start doing any calculations on anything, you take that out of the equation. And you're left with, let's say it's 49%, so you're left with 51% of the town, let's say, land mass-wise. With that 51%, half of that has to be in compliance based on the law, or over, a majority of it has to be in compliance with the workforce housing. Opportunity, correct.
Opportunity.
But let me ask, if the town has already satisfied its regional need and has the percentages needed, it says also in the law, you do not have to do anything
Beyond,
further.
that's right.
Nothing.
Absolutely true.
So I would be correct in assuming we do not have to do anything
No, sir,
toward
you
workforce housing.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, I mean, I'm asking, I've been told, no, that's
No,
wrong, I'm
they
incorrect.
are wrong. You are reading it properly.
Thank you.
Adopted the statute.
Way to go, Jody.
Mr. Evelyn and Will and, well, Dick's hiding over there.
No, he's listening.
When you said that, what year was that? There's two maps in the town office. One is the map that we have now. When was that made?
I got an idea.
2011? Okay, now the new map is now being changed to match up to the zoning areas.
There are changes
That's
on
what
it,
you
yes.
got. Why are those changes there? Who put them there?
Because over time, I go back to Barnet where I contended we had a commercial zone down there. And the people voted it out. So that changed the usage of land and it sort of shifted when things change over time. And we put the map together as a board and everybody had their say and the right to do it. And we were not working with any of the other agencies.
Who proposed those cars as being 600 feet on each side of the main road that are going to be changed?
That 600 feet, we've always had what was called forest conservation. It was a good term, except you can build in that land unless it's specifically in conservation. It's just that the rules are stricter if they're there. And they were going to change it and make it, I forget, well, we were going to make it smaller or bigger. Because,
conservation?
yeah, the boundaries, how far back it has to be.
A couple of years ago.
Right.
No, when they were
600 feet,
doing
it
the
goes
map.
back 600 feet.
Yeah, and they were going to change it,
Right.
and we argued against that, and we won.
In some areas, they want to take the forest conservation all the way to
Who's they?
the planning board in discussion. They wanted to take the forest conservation and move it all the way to town road or the class 6.
Which where it was?
No.
That's still the same. The only thing that has changed is right around Crowley Hill, 127, and New Hampton Road.
Right.
3B. That triangle has changed.
My house is in the middle of the field, but it's forest conservation.
So in reality, the map changed technically, the complete zoning changed. But yet they say they're just doing housekeeping.
No,
that was already done before though.
the house was supposed to
I think it's one and one.
This is the one that's in there. No, this is the change.
But I do have a question. On amendment number 1,
Amendment.
Yeah,
it's to change the date of the tax map, to change the date from 2012 to 14. It says it's a housekeeping issue.
That's what I'm talking about.
What does that mean? To change that one map?
It's smoke and mirrors.
That's what I want to know.
It's not a housekeeping issue.
No.
The new map.
You move from, here's the small map that I have.
it's right on.
You guys.
You're moving from this map and zoning
Listen, she's answering the question.
to this one.
No, that's the one they have.
That's the one I have.
And then the one they're switching to is the top.
Yes. You will be adopting this.
With new terms and definitions.
Yes. One is an entirely new set of terms and definitions.
Right.
Entirely.
So it's not housekeeping, that's putting, remember, words have meaning.
Because
There's no forest conservation on
in the
the
later
new one.
article,
It's forest agriculture.
Right. So the new one has no forest conservation anymore, it's now forest agriculture.
/ agriculture.
Okay? There's all kinds of new terms if you look at
That's
that
not in the
map.
zoning ordinance.
Where did those words come from?
I don't know, that's the thing, that's what, if you're not sure where they
It's
came
an
from.
opening to the back door.
That's right, it's putting it in place through the map to perhaps,
We have
Put
not
things in
changed the
place.
usage on any of those.
but
And
conservation's gone.
But we need to see
My land
that.
says some of it is in forest conservation.
It's not on
There's
that
no forest conservation on my piece of land. If I want to cut down the trees and build a house up there, I can.
But doesn't it
Because
say-
it's allowed as long as I meet the rules for that piece.
Okay, but on the other map, it does clearly say forest
Forest
conservation.
conservation, yes, we're trying to conserve it. And that was a fine name, but it probably was misnamed. Because there is the only conservation easements on all of that conservation forest area are specific ones that have been put in by people who have put their land purposefully into conservation.
Because they
Other
get
than
a
that, my
perpetual
fields up in
tax
here.
credit, that the land is purchased by a land trust.
Right,
And those people do not pay property
Right.
taxes on that land.
and what happens is,
Would
the
never have
people,
developed it anyway. It happens in my town all the time.
But we have not changed the usage.
That is exclusion.
Then why change the name?
So what you're gonna have, instead of
Susan,
general agriculture, commercial, commercial light,
Quiet down.
In order.
forest conservation, historical preservation, recreational, and general residence, you're gonna have forest and agriculture. You're gonna have rural. You're gonna have residential. You're gonna have neighborhood commercial.
That's totally.
You're gonna have shore residential. You're gonna have village center. You're gonna have the county boundary, that's county boundary. So you're gonna have all sorts of different
Definitions.
types of land uses. So
It
your
doesn't even tie
land
into
uses
the
will
rules
all
and
change.
they say it doesn't.
Now, is that required for workforce housing? No.
Because we
No,
didn't do
that
the
wasn't
map
for-
for us housing. We didn't do it for that. That's
Does
why.
it soften anything
You
up?
didn't have to, because your zoning ordinances do not discriminate. You already allow.
No, but I'm saying
Multifamily.
the change of the map was not done to accommodate or have anything to do with workforce
It
housing.
was to accommodate the way people want to use the land.
Not me, I've been on the board for 30 years.
So now you
Why
have
did
the
you
village
change it?
center, and in the village
Why-
center, well, gee, we can only have 3-story buildings. We won't have cars in the
Exactly.
village
There
center.
was no need to change it.
There was no need to change.
yeah, but,
If it's only words.
We're gonna have
Yeah.
neighborhood commercial.
Does that answer your question,
yeah, whose
sir?
idea was it to change the map?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
It came partly from the master plan and the rest came from.
It didn't come from Lakes Region Planning Commission?
From the regional planning
Absolutely.
commission.
Probably
They did
came
the-
from the Regional
All
Planning Commission,
all
I bet.
master plans come from your regional planning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not all, we had one a few years back that our board put in
Well,
place.
God
We
bless
didn't this one, but we did the.
Okay.
Bob Ward did this one.
Yes, and I will tell you, I go to all the planning commissions in Lakes Region, and I've seen Bob there, and he's in cahoots with Jerry Coogan. They take off from the meeting and they go upstairs to chit-chat about what's going on in your town.
But
Every
also, I
regional
like-
planning commission in the state of New Hampshire has been served with a right-to-know request. This was back the 3rd of January. And in those right-to-know requests, we demanded every bit of information, every email, every phone call, every note, every report, every legal opinion, every contract, every expense statement, every reimbursement statement, every bilateral agreement signed between, amongst any regional planning commissions and national regional planning commissions. We have received, we got all but one.
Yeah.
All but one is finished. And what we're going to do next month, because we've been busy with the legislature, is we're going to tear apart this information and we're going to build the quilt that shows what's happened to New Hampshire by virtue of federal money that's used to keep people's jobs so they can come in and run your life.
They really like us.
I have a good bullseye painted on the top of my car so they can follow me. Yes, ma'am.
Granite State Future,
Yes, ma'am.
isn't it only for 3 years?
Yes.
And then
But
what happens?
they are
to it?
talking about
Then
it.
we have to live with the consequences.
Yes, but I think I have heard that they're trying to lengthen the length of the
Of
contract.
course they are.
At the New Hampshire Association of Regional Planning Commissions, probably 2 months ago when I was sitting and listening to a meeting, they were talking about the fact that they were concerned because the master plans were not all completed. and that they weren't sure that they could get it done in the time at the end of that. So I have no doubt that we're gonna hear down the pike that they need to lengthen it.
Now, Sanbornton cannot enter into an agreement longer than 1 year and for more than $5,000 without a vote of the town of 60%. You can't do it. It's forbidden by budget statutes 33 and 31 RSAs.
Say that again?
I didn't know that.
Say that again?
No town,
Yeah?
cities are different. Towns cannot bind one budget longer than a year or in excess of $5,000 in the absence of a vote on the ballot.
Okay.
So, when
not
regional,
mandate.
when the Granite States Future contract is 3 years, and they're a political subdivision, how come they can do it for 3 years and you can't? Because they're not required to follow budget law.
Right. They're the only one.
They're the only ones. The state of New Hampshire goes year to year. Towns go year to year. Cities go year to year. School districts go year to year. Now, can you lease a fire truck for 5 years? Sure you can, but the town votes on it.
Yeah.
Can you issue a $100,000 bond to build a parking garage in Hanover? Sure you can, but the town votes on it.
All right, so let's keep her moving. You have a question?
I have a statement actually, about Granite State Future. We have a box with their booklets of Granite State Future, the real facts or the true facts. What's the name?
The real
Oh, Granite
facts,
State
the real facts.
Futures, with
Yeah.
an S.
Yeah, but we have the book that explains, breaks it down out here and everybody can take.
And they are great, wonderful, to show people what they are.
They're out by the bathroom.
Yes.
I'll go get it.
How about any other questions on the amendments, or,
Doesn't say yes.
yeah,
Doesn't say it.
doesn't?
If I could make one statement, and I'm going to sit down. In your zoning amendment 3, proposed zoning amendment 3, new definition, cluster development.
That's bad.
Means an innovative residential subdivision of a parcel of land as provided in 67421, where instead of subdividing an entire parcel into house lots or individual homes of conventional size, a similar number of dwellings, they've scratched out single-family dwelling units and inserted dwellings may be clustered on lots of reduced dimensions. The remaining land in the cluster development, which has not been built upon, is permanently reserved for open space. Now, you'll see here that it says this provision includes an opportunity for workforce housing consistent with RSA 674-5891. You have already adopted the workforce housing statute. Having this permanently enshrined in your zoning laws is like a Christmas tree. They'll come back with another housekeeping amendment next year. Well, you know, let's do that. It's workforce housing. The state is notorious. Legislators, lobbyists are notorious for having this sort of little enabling language where it's set in statute. And then we go back next year, the year after, it's already there. What's your problem? We're just fine tuning. That is a dangerous thing, in my personal opinion. So read these carefully, look at the notes, pull up the statutes, pull up the existing zoning ordinances and compare them.
They're really pushing cluster. We heard a lot about cluster in the last meeting.
5 is the maximum for the low-income housing tax credit.
And aren't they all rentals?
All rentals. All rentals. There's no single-family housing.
Yes.
So,
That was one of my concerns, is Sanbornton already has cluster housing. We already have it in our, we've had it for years, and it's in our commercial and our general residential. But it's 3-unit homes. And the planning board is proposing to change it from the 3 units to 5 units.
because that's the requirement of the
I
feds.
understand, but I just have a question. If we do what they're suggesting in Amendment 3, and we change it to the 5-unit home, then when a developer comes in and wants to build they have to also scale down the materials and what have you that they use to build it to comply with the workforce housing criteria for buildings. Because, and it just seemed to me, if we have cluster housing already in effect for 3-unit homes, leave it alone.
Yep.
And if we don't need it, but, if we needed it, if we needed to cross the bridge and have some sort of a, workforce housing 5-unit home to satisfy that 20 years down the road because we finally need it,
Yeah.
then create a new one specifically for that.
You just change the
Is what I
definition,
would
you don't need
think.
a new ordinance, you change the definition. And that cluster housing can be up to 5.
So that it's better to still do it that way if we really had
You
to?
don't want it in the ordinance, you want the definitions.
That's
Because the
exactly,
definitions drive.
that's exactly what's happening
The
with this
discussion.
amendment. Right now, it says 3 or more. And that means they could do their 5, they could do 10, they could do 20. We changed it to 5 to put a maximum on it. 5 is the maximum, I can't go beyond that.
Well, the feds won't lend for more than that, so it's a
You don't
non.
need it.
But it says, it makes this consistent with workforce housing.
So if workforce housing changed, that would change with it, is what you're saying?
Of course it would.
Okay, that's, trying to understand.
So whatever the feds change, you're stuck.
Well, we're stuck now because we.
But-
No, you're not.
No, you already,
It says 3 or more. It
Well, we just changed it.
you already have your fair share.
So vote yes on 4,
On
do
no
not
on all the others.
discriminate, do not.
Vote no on all of
No
them.
on all of them.
Vote no on all of them.
Opportunities.
That's what I would do.
That's
That's what I do in my town. Vote no on all of them.
Right now, it's just
Reasonable
I
opportunities.
wish the selectmen, they come in.
There's no mandatory.
We already meet the criteria, we don't want it.
They just
Right.
wanted to couple.
Do you have
Yeah, we listened to him for 3
Well,
hours.
be very careful, because what happened in our town was, we have workforce housing in our town.
Croc TV.